Hi everyone, I'm Tusef,
And I'm Brooke.
and we are co-founders of the Core Connect conference. And thank you for watching our video. We're going to be talking about a meetup that we did in New York City, which is from the New York Branding Meetup. It's basically, a meetup is basically a lot of people with similar interests that get together, and we do certain panels and networking and that sort of people who come together who have similar interests. And so the one that we did this past Thursday, actually, on March 8th, was on personal branding. And we had an awesome turnout. We had an amazing panel. It was actually moderated by myself. And the panelists consisted of 4 people. We had Pamela Weinberg, who's a coach and an expert in personal branding. We had John Kalinowski, who is a life leadership and development coach. We also had Bant Abreen, who is the CEO of Canary, and also Tanya Yuki, who is the CEO and founder of Shareably. And one of the main things that we started about is really make sure that everybody was on the same page in terms of what is actually personal branding. And we came up with a definition, a working definition, so that everybody had the same framework in terms of understanding the ideas we were talking about. So personal branding is essentially beyond just who you are and what you stand for, but it's also about how you are perceived by others, how people perceive you. So that can be whether you're walking in a room and people look at you at the first time, and depending on your body language, depending on the energy you exude, they get a certain idea of who you are. Or it could be also, for example, through social media, depending on the images you post, and people, when they look at your postings and images, they get a certain sense of who you are. That was sort of like the fundamental definition that we came up with. And Brooke, what did you think about how the other panelists talked about branding, personal branding?
I thought it was really interesting, and they had a lot of really helpful points. Pam made the point that when you're trying to come up with your own personal brand, if it's a struggle, that it's really helpful to ask your friends and family who they think you are and what they think you're good at. And that'll really help you identify those things in yourself. And then it's also really important to consider, what is it that you're doing the personal brand for? Is this for friends? Is it for a job? Is it for a promotion? Or is it to be positioned as a thought leader? Because all of those things are different. Tanya made a great point. You know, she has a very interesting background. She's a tech firm startup CEO, sharp girl. But she came from Australia, where she was a child actor on a soap opera, which she said wouldn't give her a whole lot of credibility with venture capitalists. So as she was shopping investors and as she was getting her start in the tech world with this awesome piece of technology at Shareably, she left that part out of her personal brand. It was part of who she was, but it wasn't relevant to share with investors. And I thought that was a really good point. Even though that was part of her, we don't have to overshare everything when we're in a business situation, do we, Tusef?
Absolutely. You pick and choose what would work best for you, and as well in terms of convincing or influencing the people that you're talking to.
Yeah, and so John, he is a coach. He's a personal branding life coach and a very smart guy. I thought he had the simplest and most practical advice. He said it's really 2 buckets. It's self and it's intention. And if you can understand yourself, and if you can understand your intention, what you're trying to do with this, then the brand just comes together. And I've really found that to be true.
Yes, they had a lot of insights, and it was coming from different perspectives in terms of a personal brand, but it really gave us a good idea of where you stand and who you're actually talking to as well. From there, we actually went a little bit more practical. Everybody, when they talk about personal branding, they also think a lot about social media and how you put yourself out there. And so Bant, being in working more closely with executives and leaders and professionals in terms of how to amplify their influence out into the world through social media, had really good insights on this, on the points in terms of best practices, in terms of what works and what generally doesn't work from a general perspective. One of the things that was really important is that you need to focus on 1 to 3 topics. You don't need to be a jack of all trades, and you pick those topics depending on how you would like to be recognized in terms of being knowledgeable in. Either it's something in your industry, either it's something in what you're passionate about, but to pick those 1 to 3. When you're also picking those 3, the most important thing is to be authentic to yourself. Because people they can sense when you're faking it. So it's really important that it's coming from a true place. It's not essential to be perfect. It's more important to be authentic and not to be too broad, because people like to have specific points of view.
He gave a great analogy. Do you remember about the tea? He said you can be broad and know a lot of things here, but make sure you're deep right here in the middle in at least one thing.
Yes.
I thought that was useful.
That is very useful. Yeah, because if you're broad, then you can understand different aspects of how different things work together, and that's very valuable for your employer or in whatever projects you're on. But to be really good at one specific thing, then you can really dig deep and understand in a deeper way than others don't. Mm-hmm. So after that, what we wanted to talk about also is certain advice that people gave from the panel. Bant had a really good one.
Well, he talked about empathy and how a lot of the young people are losing empathy for people, but how really important it is to be successful. You have to understand your client's motivation before you're able to really hear them and understand what it is that they're looking for.
Yes, and then also what I found, Tanya had a really good advice in terms of how to feel comfortable with who you are. Because a lot of times when we talk about personal branding, it feels a little daunting. It almost feels like you're selling yourself. So instead, you can flip it in the sense that instead of just focusing on yourself, is really to look at how you can actually be generous. And it's really about giving value to the other person, because at the end of the day, you're really trying to make a connection with the other person. And so instead of really feeling like you're being judged for who you are, is instead looking, well, I'm having this exchange with this person, and what can I give and what can I offer for the conversation and for the person as well.
Yeah, what can I add? What value can I add here instead of worrying about what they are thinking about me?
Yes. It's always, I think sometimes people try to focus too much on themselves, and I think it's an extremely important point to understand what you want, where you want to go. But then after that, you always have to put yourself in the shoes of the other person and understand what are their motivations, so then you can position yourself accordingly and when you communicate with them. And I think those were sort of the main points. And then we had an awesome time networking. It was a lot of good mingling and fun.
That's why you go to those things. You meet some really interesting people.
Yes. Well, that's one of the things that we also talked about is we live in amazing times in terms of digital and social media, but it's so important to have those connections face to face and have, because we've been human beings for so long, so our 5 senses just sort of like get in there, and then we can connect on a deeper level. So even, for example, if you go out and you want to meet somebody and you reaching out through LinkedIn, through digital, the recommendation is you can reach out to them and get connected over digital, but then ask them out for coffee and then make that connection more of a human connection afterwards.
So we have a great opportunity for you to network with some of these fantastic people on May 16th, 2018 at our Core Connect conference at the School for Visual Arts. We'll be addressing these and a whole lot of other issues and subjects in digital marketing today, and our speaker lineup is incredible. So go check out our website, coreconnectconference.com, and see who all we've got coming. It's going to be really great.
Yes, so we have to tell you the speakers. It's Keith Reinhardt, Chairman DDB. We have Kathleen Hall from Microsoft, Debbie Millman, who's host of the podcast Design Matters, and Claude Silver from VaynerMedia. So amazing lineup talking about how to make marketing human in the digital age. So thank you so much, and we'll be probably shooting another video in the next couple of weeks or so. Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.